Hi everybody, welcome to day 5 of our 10-day challenge. And here we have an article um, which is a little unique, I would say, right? Here we have an article which is pretty different to what we have been reading in the past 4 days, right? Uh, because we've been reading articles that are uh, largely how do you call them? They are uh, descriptive passages, right? Descriptive articles and also articles that were largely fact-based, right? But here we have an article which is totally different in the sense that it is written by uh, a writer, and everything that he writes in here is totally reflected on his life, right? So it's also good practice to read articles of this nature, since exposing yourself to discursive writing is also one important feat. Besides, in IELTS reading, especially in Passage 3, you may get you know this kind of style, right, of writing. Now, without any further ado, let's get down to it. Why the royal family hasn't responded to Prince Harry's memoir? Oh, sorry. Turns out, I read an article earlier, which I thought I was going to share with you, but it turns out that I'll be sharing with you a regular um, article from time.com. Now let's get down to it. Um, okay, Prince Harry, I think you guys have already heard the story, right? And honestly haven't, so let's uncover that, shall we? So memoir, let's first find out what it is. Um, Memoir is a book or other piece of writing based on the writer's personal knowledge of famous people, places, or events, right? A written record of a usual famous person's own life and experience. Yes, like usually, if you write your memoirs, it means that you write about your life. Um, Now, moving on. Um, Now, Prince Harry defends his decision to publish a memoir. Okay, so he wants to basically talk about his life. He wants to sort of like disclose all the, uh, let's say, sheltered life that he had, because I think it's a fact that a royal family is not supposed to be open, all right? So they're supposed to uh, be reserved in a certain way, right? So that and Harry, right? Prince Harry wants to come clean about his life story. Now, never complain, never explain is the infamous motto of the British royal family. Yes, infamous motto, meaning that uh, famous for something bad. And this motto is a little bad in the sense that uh, they have that, what? Well, I wouldn't call it apathetic, but um, they are the royal family usually hides everything, right? So they have that, uh, serene manner, right? Serene behavior, or there is even a better word for that, equanimous, right? So equanimous, uh, equanimous, and I'm not sure if I'm writing it correctly, but equanimous. Let me just look it up. Equanimous. Equanimity. Yes, equanimous is like an adjective word. So if you know a let me just see, equan equanimous means mm, equanimity. Yes, basically equanimity is being able to keep calm. All right, when you equanimous, it means that you are in such a state um, that no one ever knows how you're feeling. And this is typical of royals, all right? So the royal family is supposed to look equanimous, and I'll try to, figure out how it's spelled, and then probably share it with you later. But I'm pretty sure it's spelled something like quanimous. Is that right? Quanimous? No. Quan. But whatever, right? So that's what it means. So the royal family is supposed to be economists after all, but it turns out that Harry, right, wants to come clean about his past, and it's the strategy they have clung to in the aftermath of explosive allegations in Prince Harry's new memoir, Spare, published on Tuesday, and candid television interviews aired this past Sunday. So this is the strategy, right? Never complain, never explain, all right? So that's equanimity in one word, all right? So it's a little, it's a well, yeah, it's an advanced word, I'd say, and I'm just adding it from my own vocabulary bank, and I don't think you can find the word from anywhere here. But with that being said, let's move on. And it's the strategy they have clung to, right? So the strategy they have clung to, like they have stuck with, all right? If you cling to something, right? Clung is the past participle. Um, if you cling to something, it means you stick to it. You know, don't let it go. Um, in the aftermath, so if something happens in the aftermath, it happens after something shocking happened, right? In the aftermath of explosive allegations in Prince Harry's new memoir and candid television interviews. So candid television uh, interview. So if something is candid, it's like um, painfully what true. All right. So candid television is like painfully upfront television interviews where Prince Harry probably was well, yes, overly upfront about his life, for example, and explosive allegations. Explosive allegations allegations uh I think you know what it means, but let the dictionary talk. All right, here. So allegation is a statement that someone has done something wrong or illegal that has not been proved true. All right. So explosive allegations in so basically Prince Harry made some allegations in his memoir, right, Spare, which was published on Tuesday, right? So aftermath of explosive allegations, right? So like Prince Harry made some allegations, you know, probably of something, right, about a person. Now let's move on. Um, Harry has lobbed a host of accusations against his family. Yes, that's what they're saying. You see, so lobbed a host of accusations. Accusations are pretty much the same thing as allegations against uh, his against somebody or something. So if you lob a host of accusations against somebody or something, right? I mean, the chances are you would probably never accuse anything, right? You would always accuse a person, not a thing. So lob here is new to me, and I think it means to throw. Yes, and here it comes in a figurative sense, right? Lobbed a host of accusations against. So he threw, you know, a lot of accusations, a host of like several accusations against his family. That includes, right? And pay attention to the simplicity of the language. That includes, right? What is that? The fact that Harry did this and that, right? So that's that. And I want you guys to all remember this phrase for when you have to use it in task 2, for example. So you give a topic sentence and then you say that includes, right? Something like that. Prince William's physical violence against him, right? So physical violence uh, against him, right? Against somebody. So physical violence against somebody, it means that somebody hurt someone, right? Someone else in a physical way, right? Punch them or kick them, whatever. Queen consort Camilla pushing negative stories about Meghan Markle to the press. Pushing negative stories about somebody or something to the press. It means that, you know, specifically feeding the press, in which case media, right, press, like, you know, wherever the news come from, right, pushing negative stories about something to the press. It means that they specifically provided those stories to the press. And even that Kate Middleton was reluctant to share lip gloss with Meghan. Lip gloss, what does it mean? A type of makeup that is put on the lips to make them look shiny. All right, so it's like uh something that, something of a lipstick, but it's a little different, right? Was reluctant to share lip gloss with Megan. So reluctant to do something, it means uh, not willing to do something, right? So that's why it's like, hesitant to do something, which is why slow to do it. Um, so okay, so these are all the allegations, right? That Prince Harry has lobbed against his family. But as the media storm continues. Like as the media, what is it called? Like all that commotion, right? So noise, right? Continues to gain traction. Actually, media storm continues to gain traction means gain, you know, uh, sort of like popularity, right? So gain traction is actually a yeah, pooling, right? So yes. Um, the royal institution and its members have still not uttered a word. Utter means say, right? A deliberate attempt to remedy their public image. And pay attention. And again, if you guys remember, I talk a lot about this. And M dash, right? So it's used to sort of like explain the last point that has been made, right? In which case they have not uttered a word, right? Which is, right? Instead of saying which is, they're just specifically omitting that and that's just showing that connection with an M dash, which is again, like I said, an indicator of high level writing. A deliberate attempt, right? Deliberate attempt to remedy means to make it better, right? To remedy, to heal their public image. And a deliberate attempt means like something that is done on purpose, right? Um, Okay, the history of the royal family keeping quiet. Dignified silence is a tried and tested format. Dignified silence, right? So I think that's good as well. Dignified silence is a tried and tested format. A tested, right? A tried and tested format. That's again real nice. Says Katie Nicole, Vanity Fair's Royals correspondent and author of the New Royals. The palace is reluctant to engage at any level because once they do, uh, it just fuels the narrative, and Harry has made um, and the narrative and Harry has made so many allegations it's almost impossible to address everyone. So okay, so here um, reluctant to engage at any level, right? Engage at any level because once they do, it just fuel fuels the narrative, right? So when something fuels something, it means that it makes it um even all the more dramatic. Let's say it was already dramatic, but it's gonna add fuel, to the fire, so to speak. So and narrative is usually is used with the, right. So the narrative is like the story, right? The story or the description of a series of events um, fuels the narrative, right? So it makes the story all the more dramatic. And Harry has made so many allegations; it's almost impossible to address everyone, right? Okay, so pay attention to the collocation of allegations, right? Which verb it's used with, made allegations, right? So, okay, what they're saying here is that they don't want to engage it at any level, because it just fuels the narrative, right? It just makes the narrative even well, yeah, sort of like probably makes it, if the narrative is like looking bad, it's gonna make it even bad, right? Even more appalling. So we're gonna keep going. Nicole, who has covered the royal family for almost 2 decades, right? Cover someone, it means to sort of like um you know, probably hide somebody's weaknesses and shortcomings, right? So probably in that sense, but it may also be in another sense, like covered the royal family, like just served maybe. Describe the institution's silence as a sensible strategy. Okay, um, sensible strategy. Sensible means like something that makes sense. That is causing Harry to damage his public reputation. Um, Okay, so that strategy is causing Harry to damage his public reputation. Damage public reputation. Reputation. Now, uh, moving on. In a 60 Minutes interview with Anderson Cooper, Harry said that the royal family does a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining. By leaking stories to the press, right? If you leak something, leaking stories to the press, it means that you give away confidential information, right? Illegally. So to the press to paint themselves in a better light. Oh, that's great. Paint themselves in a better light. They specifically do that to just show themselves to the public as good people, right? In a better light, or to paint others in a negative one. He claimed these stories often conceal their sources, right? Um, conceal their sources. So conceal, I think it means to prevent something from being seen, or yeah. Uh, he claimed that these stories often conceal their sources and say they reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment when the palace is often the direct source. So what they're here saying is that he claimed these stories often conceal their sources, um, like makes what all right, and say uh, they reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment when the palace is often the direct source. Well, I'm gonna have to come back to it, so I'll just highlight it because I didn't fully understand it. All right, so you can do this as well on your own. Nicole says the late Queen Elizabeth. So the late means the dead, all right? So that's a polite way of referring to those who died. Queen Elizabeth was a master of only speaking publicly when necessary. A master, all right, of doing something. That's nice. Speaking publicly when necessary. The Queen only responded when she absolutely had to, and it was often short and succinct. Right, so short and succinct. It means to the point, as I recall, because it was like a long time ago when I saw this word. Said in a clear and short way, expressing what needs to be said without unnecessary words. Yes, which is something that your writing task 2 is supposed to be, right? Not just task 2, but task 1 as well. Um, like succinct to the point. Nicole says, in the wake of Harry and Meghan's 2021 Oprah interview, Buckingham Palace issued a brief statement on behalf of the Queen, saying she was saddened to hear of the couple's struggles. Right, hear of something. Right, it's a little different to hear about. Right, couple's struggles. Um, okay. And they were particularly concerned by allegations of racism, right? Um, and she was saddened to hear of the couple's struggles, and they were particularly concerned by allegations of racism, right? Particularly concerned is also a nice chunk of language, I believe. Meaning that Meghan is a black woman, whereas Harry, right, is white. Is if I'm not really mistaken. So they were concerned by that, by allegations of racism. Uh, I think that's what they meant, right? Palace issued a brief statement on behalf of the Queen, saying that she was saddened to hear of the couple's struggles, and they were particularly concerned by allegations of racism. Uh, oh, like Buckingham Palace, right? So I think, yeah, in the wake of, yeah, actually in the wake of, we missed that, right? In the wake of means at the beginning. Um, so by they, I think they mean Buckingham Palace issued a brief statement on behalf of the Queen, saying she was saddened to hear the couple's struggles, and they were particularly concerned by allegations of racism. Yeah, I guess now I see that. While some recollections may vary, right, they are taken very seriously and will be addressed by the family privately. Recollections meaning that memories, right? Um, Buckingham Palace said at the time. Nicole says that by saying that recollections vary, right, the Queen publicly acknowledged that the couple's hurt, right, the couple's hurt, while also casting doubt on the finer details. Uh, like acknowledge the couple's hurt, the couple's struggles, right? Here, hurt comes as a noun, while also casting doubt on the finer details. Casting doubt on the finer details. So let's see what cast means. Like throw, it probably also means throw, cast. Cast doubt on something to make people feel less sure about or have less trust in someone, right? Casting doubt on the finer details, like, now evidence has cast doubt on the regular something verdict. Casting doubt, like, she sort of like cast a doubt on the finer details, meaning that um, she didn't really, you know, Nicole says that by saying that recollections vary, right? The queen publicly acknowledged that the couple's hurt, right, while also casting doubt on the finer details. Ah, I see. So, she, you know, okay. So what she did was she did acknowledge the couple's hurt, but she didn't necessarily go into the details, which means that people were left, you know, in well, I would say they were left let's say in a state of confusion, right? About the finer details. Like finer details means better, like fine, something fine, excellent, like or thorough details, right? Now, what happened when the royal family has spoken out? In response to the 2021 Oprah interview, Prince William broke his silence to respond to a reporter at a public engagement who asked him, "Is royal family a racist family?" Oh, now I see. Like about Meghan, right? It turns out that it was not the people who were racist, but who were alleged of being racist, but it was the royal family. Um. Okay, so Nicole says Williams responds that uh, okay, that the royal family is very much not a racist family, broke that code of silence given the nature of the allegations, but those comments were criticized on social media. Okay, according to Tim, what, Jatisky, a director at the public relations from PHA Group, the royal family has maintained the moral high ground with their silence. Maintained their moral high ground with their silence. So if you mark your moral high ground with something, it means that you show people that you are you should be feared, you should be respected, right, for something. And what the royal family, right, has always maintained their moral high ground with their silence. Sometimes the hardest thing in PR is to tell a client that the right course of action the right course, the right course of action, the right direction of actions, if you will, is to say nothing when your reputation is under attack, right? Um, Reputation under attack, right? So yes, that's the hardest thing in to tell a client that the right course of action is to say nothing when your reputation is under attack. The understandable reaction is to hit back, right? Understandable uh, reaction is to hit back. It means that to answer that attack, right, and then like counter attack. But it can often be um okay, but it can often be the best advice, right? But it can often be the best advice. What do they mean by that? Understandable reaction is to hit back, but it can often be the best advice. The best advice is like staying calm, all right? The reputation expert says the toe curling detail in Prince Harry's book, toe curling detail here means annoying, toe. That's why it's in quotes, by the way, right? So toe curling. So when you curl your toes, I believe pretty much with everybody, what happens is they get annoyed, right? Without even having to look at the dictionary, I think we all already know what it means, right? Toe curling detail, like annoying detail, annoyingly fine detail, probably. In Prince Harry's book, has been more damaging to himself than the royal family as an act of self-sabotage, right? So when you self-sabotage, when you sabotage yourself, it means that you put yourself in a you know in a dangerous situation, even if you know the risks, right? Even if you know what's at stake. So, an act of self sabotage. Um, okay, the discrepancy in approaches used by Prince Harry and the royal family be explained by their stake in the fight, right? So the stake is what like you have, right? So the stake is the how do I put this? Let the dictionary talk again. So stake for the risks, yes. Like now, let's come back to the discrepancy, the difference in approaches used by Prince Harry and the royal family, be explained by their stake in the fight, right? So I mean, by what Prince Harry has to lose, and by what royal family has to lose, uh, and pay attention to this B, right? Is explained instead of just saying that. This is a new structure to me, the discrepancy approaches used by Prince Harry and the royal family be explained by their stake in their fight. Right? Harry has a book to promote, explains Jotiski, while the royal brand is in self-preservation mode. Yes, right. So it perfectly explains what the stake is. Right. So be explained by their stake in the fight, right? By what they have to lose, right? And what they have to lose is, well, Harry has a new book to promote, whereas the royal family is in the business of self-preservation, right? So, in self-preservation, uh, preservation mode. I mean, after all, if um, Harry takes a hit, so does the royal family, right? Because he is part of the royal family. In fact, one of the most important parts of it, right? So self-preservation meaning that's saving themselves. Um, According to a YouGov poll that surveyed over 1,600 Britons from January 5 to 6, both William and Harry's reputations have taken a hit. Right? I used this word just now. Taken a hit, like take a receive. How do I put this? Like an attack, right? So I guess yeah, that the big that explains it, right? So take a hit. Uh, okay. In the lead up to right in the lead up to uh spares release, right? Like as the spares release was approaching, that's one way of putting it, you guys. And I recommend you try to use sentences right away when you come up with such nice chunks of language, such as in the lead up to, right? So for example, uh so I started I started reading articles with what and as well as watched their uh, video analysis at ULUGBEK'S, right? Just sneaky self promotion right there. But anyway, so I watched this and I did this and that in the lead up to my IELTS exam day, right? So in the lead up to my IELTS exams, let's say to my exam date or something like that. You know what I mean? Okay, so in the lead up to Spare's release, and since its contents were made public, all right. Only 26 of Britons now hold a positive view about Harry. Hold a positive view of somebody, right? Oh, actually, it's about somebody, but I guess of would also do the trick. All right. William's popularity has also slid, right? So, slid, probably slide, right? I hope that's what it means. Slide, yes, slid. So if something slides, it gets into a worse state, right? So like popularity, right? William's uh popularity popularity has also slid. Well, that's really nice, I mean, the language there, right there, like the popularity slides. Wow, that's great. But a majority of 69% of respondents still view William favorably, view somebody favorably. That's again nice language. Favorably, right? And don't mind this, the text detector, whatever that is. It's like this is with OU. It's British way of writing it. Attitudes towards Charles, Kate, and Meghan have remained consistent since a prior poll in December. Uh, attitudes uh, toward Somebody remained consistent uh, since prior poll, since something. Look, in this whole paragraph, you can there's this paragraph is a great treasure trove of language that you can use in task one, right? So attitudes towards someone or something remain remain consistent, right? So remain consistent such as stable or remain the same, remain consistent. View something favorably, right? Or popularity has slid. Or in what else? Like there's a lot of nice chunks of language. In the light of these figures, right? In light of these figures, so because of, okay, in light of means because of, right? In light of these figures, Nicole doesn't believe the monarchy will incur lasting damages by taking a battering. Right? So the monarchy, by that they mean the royal family, will incur lasting damage. So incur, I don't know what that means, to be honest. Incur, to experience something, usually something unpleasant, as a result of actions you've taken. Oh, that's actually a really precise chunk of language. So the monarchy will incur lasting damage, right? Incur lasting damage, experience lasting damage despite taking a battering, right? What do they mean by battering? Um, Acting the an act of hitting someone. Uh, okay, so take a battering to be defeated heavily, right? So instead of taking a battering, okay, so take taking a battering, like, right? So it means to what was it? I just saw it, but to be defeated heavily. And pay attention how to the word heavily, not just being defeated, but the being defeated heavily, right? Taking a battering, right? Despite taking a battering, but she thinks Harry and Meghan will remain divisive figures, right? Remain divisive, right? So divisive means dividing the whole population into two groups, right? So let me just double check that. Divisive describes something that causes great and that causes great and sometimes unfriendly disagreement within a group of people. Okay, so that's what it means. Uh, okay, remain this divisive figures, and figures here means people, right? Not just numbers, but people. Harry is now a peripheral member, she says, who has invited his own criticism from both enemies and allies alike over revelations. He killed 25 Afghans while on military duty. Um, from both enemies and allies alike over revelations, right? Uh, he invited those criticisms, right? Over revelations, he killed 25 Afghans while on military duty. Now, peripheral member. What does it mean? Uh, okay, so let me just check that. Peripheral. Let me see.
Peripheral.
Peripheral. Not as important as something else. Oh yeah, I see. So now it's not like he's not important anymore, right? He's now a peripheral member, she says, who has invited his own criticism from both enemies and allies. Allies means friends, right? Alike. Alike means both, right? Enemies and allies alike. Over revelations, he killed 25 Afghans while on military duty. Um, okay. Uh, what to choose here? How about I go with the whole thing? But okay, yeah, like military duty is a separate, phrase of its own. So like this whole what extract, if you will, is probably like really uh rich in nice language. How should the royal family respond to Speyer? While Jatisky and Nicole agree that the royal family shouldn't say anything, neither believe they should do anything, right? They do not. I again like pay attention to neither how it's used. I have never actually seen it used like that. Okay, while Jatinsky and Nicole agree the royal family shouldn't. So here is a negative, right? Say anything, right? Or believe they shouldn't do anything. Not just or, but nor, right? Neither believe they should do anything. Right? They shouldn't do anything. Right? So they neither believe that they shouldn't. Yeah, they shouldn't say anything, but they shouldn't do anything. Okay, so that's what they agree on. Jatisky says the King Charles should invite Harry and Meghan to his coronation in May. It will be a distraction, but it will avoid the royal family looking vindictive. Um, okay, avoid something or somebody looking addictive. Actually, vindictive. Vindictive meaning, uh, what? Blame, vindictive, like, uh, guilty, right? Harm someone because you think they have harmed you, unwilling to forgive. All right, so I see. Looking vindictive. Okay, so or unwilling to forgive, and for an institution that measures itself in centuries of history, right, and tradition rather than sound bites. Sound bites. Let's see. Sound bites. Uh, so soundbite, a short sentence or phrase that is easy to remember, often included in a speech made by a politician and repeated in newspapers and on television. So I think this is what we now have on the internet, right? So sound bites, you know, that are extracted off different interviews from that popular people gave, right? And they're like short version of those, right? Um, let's see. Uh, and for an institution that measures itself in centuries of history, right? Measures itself as what? Yeah, okay, in centuries, right? It's like long, right, of history and tradition, right? History and tradition, and tradition, right? So they're the same. They're what? They're together. Rather than sound bites and instant headlines. Uh, Sound bites and instant headlines. Okay, ton of ton of spelling mistakes. That is important, right? So, yes, it will be a distraction to a lot of people. It will avoid the royal family looking vindictive, like looking unwilling to forgive. Meanwhile, Nicole says the family must show a willingness to reconcile. Show, okay, a willingness to reconcile. Reconcile means to patch things out, okay? To sort of get back together and learn some lessons because the family needs to be present itself as a symbol of unity. Present itself as a symbol uh, of unity. Okay, at present, the House of Windsor is being rivaled and overshadowed by what Nicole describes as a uh, what rival court in California, right? So let's see, it's being rivaled uh, and um, overshadowed. Overshadowed means like, how do I put this? Making or uh, looking so unimportant because something else is sort of like taking up the whole spot, right? It's sort of like something else. There's something else that is overshadowing it, like making it look as if it's of very little importance, right? That the House of Windsor is being rivaled and overshadowed by what Nicole describes as a rival court in California, doing one of the most monumental transitions, right? Okay, during one of the most monumental transitions. Monumental means um, like important, something that cannot be scratched off, in royal history, following the queen's death, reconciliation is probably the greatest act of progression. The greatest act of progression, like, going forward. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it, guys. So I guess we have to come back to that part where I highlighted he claimed these stories often conceal their sources and say they reached out to Buckingham Palace for. Let me just read this whole thing from the beginning. Um, Nicole, who has covered the royal family for almost 2 decades, described the institution's silence as a sensible strategy that is causing Harry to damage his public reputation. Um, Okay. Mm, that is causing Harry to damage his public reputation. In a 60 minutes interview, so now it's sort of like a clarification of what that damaging his public reputation is. In a 60 minutes interview with Anderson Cooper, Harry said that the royal family does a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining by leaking stories to the press to paint themselves in a better light or to paint others in a negative one. He claimed these stories, right? So those stories that they leak, right, often conceal their sources, right? So they conceal, they don't really show uh, or let's say they don't really disclose the sources, like show the sources of the stories to anyone, and say they reached out to Buckingham Palace, right? And they say, yeah, and say, uh, claimed these stories often conceal their sources and say, right? Those stories often conceal their sources and say they reach out to Buckingham Palace for comment when the palace is often the direct source. Uh, is often the direct source. Again, like I'm kind of having a hard time understanding this. Probably because of grammar or maybe something else. He said that the royal family does a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining by leaking stories to the press to paint themselves in the better light. Okay, so they do leak stories, and he claimed that these stories often conceal their sources, right? So conceal the sources of in the stories, I believe, right? Uh, Often conceal their sources and say they reached out to Buckingham Palace, right? uh, or like I think that when they say they're probably talking to press, right? Their sources, and say they reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment when the palace is often the direct source. For comment, reached out to when the palace is often the direct source. Again, it's kind of a lot to take in. I don't know why, but it's not really making any sense. But if I come back, I'm pretty sure it will start clicking. But other than that, this video analysis or whatever you like to call it was more or less a success, right? So I hope to see you in the next videos and take care.